Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tracing the path of a figure whose name is just synonymous with conquest, with brilliance, and you could argue with a kind of devastating recklessness, Alexander the Great.
It's an incredible story. In 334 BC, he's just 20 years old, and he launches this campaign against the Persian Empire.
And not just any empire, we're talking about the superpower of the age.
The undisputed superpower. And over 10 years, he just carves out this empire that changes the map of the world.
So our mission today, I think, is to get beyond just the list of battles. We want to unpack how we did it. What was the engine behind it all?
Exactly. What was that mix of military genius, the tools he inherited from his father, and just the sheer psychological drive that pushed him and his men to what they literally thought was the edge of the world, the how and the why.
And one of the first things you notice in the sources is how divided his legacy is. He's not a simple hero figure.
Not at all. To the west, he's Alexander the Great. We study his tactics, his fearlessness. He's a legend.
But if you read the Persian sources, the people whose cities he burned,
to them, he was Alexander the Accursed. He was a destroyer. And you really have to hold both of those ideas in your head at the same time to understand the man.
Okay, so before we get to Alexander himself, we need to set the stage. How could a tiny kingdom from the north even think about attacking Persia?
Well, you have to look at the Greek world he inherited in the mid-4th century BC. For the better part of 200 years, it had been defined by rivalry.
Right, you have Athens, the great naval power, the heart of democracy and philosophy.
And then you have Sparta, the ultimate military state, the land power, famed for its army. And for decades, they were just constantly at each other's throats.
But they had worked together once, and it was legendary, in 480 BC against the Persian invasion.
That's the key moment. That joint effort gave us Thermopylae, the naval victory at Salamis, the final battle at Plataea. It proved that a united Greece could, beat anyone.
But the irony is, after proving that, they just spent the next 100 years fighting each other.
Exactly. The famous Golden Age was basically torn apart by internal conflict, especially the Peloponnesian War. It never really stopped.
It's like a story of political exhaustion. They repel the superpower, and then they spend all their energy and wealth bleeding each other dry.
And that left them vulnerable, fractured, weakened, and just spent. And that created a power vacuum, a vacuum that was filled by a new power from the north.
Macedonia, which to the sophisticated Greeks in Athens was basically the Styx, right?
Oh, absolutely. They saw it as a backwater, Hicksville, as you say, full of semi-barbarians. They barely even considered them Greek.
And yet, under one man, King Philip II, this backwater becomes the foundation for everything Alexander will achieve.
Philip's transformation of Macedonia is the whole story. He saw that the Greek city-states were exhausted, and he realized their way of fighting, the traditional hoplite warfare, was outdated.
So he didn't just reform his army, he invented a new one.
He really did, and the core of that invention, the thing that changes everything, the sarissa.
Okay, let's break that down because it's so important. The sarissa is a pike, but it's not just any pike.
No. It's a massive two-handed weapon, about 18 feet long.
18 feet. So that's what, double the length of a normal Greek spear?
Exactly. Double. And you have to picture how it was used. It wasn't for duels. It was a team weapon.
The phalanx.
The Macedonian phalanx. A formation 16 ranks deep. Now think about that. The first 5 ranks of men could all point their sarissas forward at the same time.
So you're advancing on a literal wall of spear points. 5 layers of them.
A bristling 18-foot wall of iron. Any traditional Greek shield wall would just get impaled before their own shorter spears could even touch the Macedonians. It was, from the front, virtually unstoppable.
But it sounds clumsy. How do you maneuver with an 18-foot pole that takes 2 hands?
That's the Achilles heel. It was incredibly inflexible. It couldn't turn quickly, and if you got around its side, its flank, it was horribly vulnerable.
So the genius wasn't just the phalanx itself.
No, it was the combined arms system built around it to protect those weaknesses. And using this new army, by 338 BC, Philip crushes Athens and Thebes at the Battle of Chaeronea. He effectively ends Greek independence.
And after that victory, he doesn't just occupy them, he unifies them.
He does. He forms the Hellenic League, or the League of Corinth. Nearly every Greek state joins, except for Sparta, of course.
Of course.
And he has himself named Hegemon Supreme Commander.
And with that unified army, he announces his grand plan.
A pan-Hellenic war. A war of revenge against the old enemy, Persia. He saw the Persian Empire as this huge, slow, ailing giant, just ripe for the picking.
But he never gets to lead it.
History intervenes. In 336 BC, just as he's sending the first troops across, Philip is assassinated, stabbed by his own bodyguard, the result of some vicious court politics.
And suddenly, this grand plan, this incredible army, it all falls into the lap of his 20-year-old son.
Alexander, who, to be fair, was not unprepared. He'd have been tutored by Aristotle.
The Aristotle.
And he was already an experienced commander. He'd led the cavalry at Chaeronea when he was 18. He inherits the throne, and he inherits the plan.
But first he has to survive, right? Macedonian succession was not a peaceful process.
Not at all. And he immediately shows this shocking capacity for ruthless calculation. He executes rivals, he crushes rebellions.
And his response to the rebellion in Thebes, that really set the tone for his entire career.
It's chilling. Thebes was one of the oldest, greatest cities in Greece. When they defied him, he didn't just defeat them, he annihilated them.
Leveled the entire city.
Leveled it, and sold the entire population into slavery. The message was crystal clear. Defiance means erasure.
And that terror campaign worked. It secured his rear.
It did. And in the spring of 334 BC, with Greece quiet behind him, Alexander leads his army across the Hellespont into Asia. He was ready to fulfill his father.
So let's look at that army he took with him. It's about 40,000 men, which isn't huge by Persian standards.
No, but it was a masterpiece of military engineering, a perfectly integrated professional force.
At its heart, you have the phalanx, 9,000 Macedonians.
The professionals, wielding that 18-foot sarissa, they are the anvil, the unstoppable wall that pins the enemy in place.
But we talked about its weakness, the flanks. So how did he protect them?
With his elite infantry, the Hydaspes, or shield bearers, 3,000 of them. They carried shorter spears, they were more mobile, they were the flexible force that could react quickly and guard that vulnerable connection between the slow phalanx and the fast cavalry.
And then you had a second line.
Yes, for depth, about 7,000 allied Greeks and 5,000 mercenaries. Traditional hoplites, they provided stability.
But the real killing blow, the weapon that won all his major battles, was the cavalry.
The companion cavalry, 1,800 elite horsemen, heavily armored, fighting in a wedge formation, and this was the hammer.
The famous hammer and anvil tactic.
Exactly. The phalanx pins them, and Alexander himself leads the companions in a charge to shatter the enemy command.
And you also had light troops, skirmishers.
The Agrians, elite javelin throwers, Thracians, they screened the army, they dealt with enemy light cavalry. It was just a perfectly balanced, multifaceted machine.
Okay, so this machine lands in Asia. How do the Persians respond?
The local governors, the satraps, they hold a war council, and they make a catastrophic mistake right away.
Which was?
They ignore their best general, a Greek mercenary named Memnon of Rhodes. He knew the Macedonian army inside and out.
And what was his advice?
Avoid a battle. Use a scorched earth strategy.
Burn everything.
Burn the crops, poison the wells, pull back into the interior, and starve Alexander's army out. It was brilliant advice. Alexander's supply lines were long and fragile.
So why didn't they take it?
Short-term thinking. These were provincial governors. They didn't want to destroy their own wealthy provinces just to win a strategic victory. It was about protecting their own turf and their own prestige.
So instead of a strategic retreat, they decide to fight him immediately.
They do, at the river Granicus.
And they pick a strong defensive position, right?
Well,
on the far bank of the river, which had steep banks.
A very strong position. They put their best troops, about 10,000 cavalry, right on the river's edge with their Greek mercenaries behind them.
And Alexander, true to form, doesn't hesitate. His own general, Parmenion, advises him to wait to cross at dawn.
But Alexander refuses. He orders an immediate assault in the late afternoon. He leads the right wing himself, the shock troops, and just charges straight across the river.
Right into a hail of javelins, uphill on muddy banks.
It was chaos. The sources describe this desperate, swirling melee right at the top of the bank, and Alexander is right in the middle of it.
He nearly dies, doesn't he?
Almost immediately. A Persian noble smashes his helmet with a scimitar. Another one, Spithridates, is raising his sword for the killing blow.
And then the famous intervention.
Cletus the Black, one of his companions, he sees the danger, rides in, and just cuts the man's arm clean off, sword and all. He saves Alexander's life 20 minutes into the...
Wow. And that turns the tide.
It does. The companions secure a foothold, the phalanx manages to cross and form up, and once that wall of pikes is advancing, The Persian cavalry just breaks and flees.
But the battle isn't over.
Yeah.
There are still the Greek mercenaries who are fighting for Persia.
And they had been held in reserve. They barely fought. They see the battle is lost and they try to surrender. They appeal for mercy.
And Alexander gives them none.
He sees them as traitors to the Greek cause. He surrounds them and massacres them, almost to a man. It's an act of calculated terror, just like at Thebes.
And with that one brutal victory, all of Asia Minor is essentially his.
It's wide open, but he has a serious strategic problem.
The Persian navy.
Exactly. His supply lines back to Greece are still vulnerable. The Persian fleet could cut him off completely.
So his next move is fascinating. He doesn't build a fleet to fight them at sea.
No, he fights a land war against their navy. He marches down the coast and captures all of their major naval bases, Miletus, Halicarnassus. By taking their ports, he makes their fleet useless.
There's a brief scare, though. That Greek general, Memnon.
Right. Memnon managed to get a small fleet together and actually started retaking islands in the Aegean. It was a real threat. But then, just as it's getting serious, Memnon suddenly dies of an illness.
Another moment of incredible luck for Alexander.
It really was. With that threat gone, he moves inland to the city of Gordium. And this is where we get the legend of the Gordian knot.
The prophecy. Whoever can untie this impossibly complex knot on an old ox cart will rule all of Asia.
And Alexander tries, he struggles with it, and then he just gives up on patience.
He pulls out his sword
and slices it in half, which is it's the perfect metaphor for his entire approach. When faced with a complex problem, don't finesse it, cut through it with decisive.
And that force was about to be tested like never before, because the Persian king, Darius III, was coming for him.
Darius had mobilized the main imperial army, a huge force, maybe 100,000 strong, and he was determined to trap and crush Alexander.
And he actually succeeds in trapping him, doesn't he? He gets his army behind Alexander's line of march.
He does. Near a place called Issus, he cuts off Alexander's retreat. The battle is set. But Darius makes a critical error.
The battlefield.
The battlefield. The coastal plain at Issus is only about 6 miles wide. It's a narrow corridor between the mountain and the sea.
So Darius's massive advantage in numbers is useless.
It's totally negated. He can't outflank Alexander. His huge army is just crammed into this narrow space. It becomes a battle of frontage, not numbers.
And Alexander immediately sees the advantage.
He does. The phalanx holds the center. He takes his elite cavalry, the companions, to the right near the mountains, and he just charges.
But the center gets into trouble, right?
Yeah.
The phalanx starts to buckle against Darius's own Greek mercenaries.
It does. For a moment, it looks like the Macedonian center might break. But Alexander, seeing the danger, doesn't pursue the routing flank. He wheels the companions and charges straight at the Persian center.
Directly at Darius himself.
Right at the king's position. And the charge is so ferocious, so terrifying, that Darius loses his nerve. He turns his chariot and flees.
He just abandons his army.
Abandons everything. His army, his wife, his mother, his children. And the moment the king runs, the entire army panics and routs.
The accounts of the aftermath are just horrific.
Ptolemy, one of his generals, said the bodies of the fleeing Persians were so numerous they used them to fill a ravine so the army could cross it. It was a total slaughter.
But strategically, it was a massive win. He didn't just win the battle, he captured the royal family.
And he treats them with honor, which is a very smart political move. He's signaling that he respects Persian royalty even as he's destroying its power.
So after Issus, he continues south down the coast,
securing all the ports. This leads to the incredibly difficult 7-month siege of Tyre, the island fortress,
where they build a causeway out to the island. Just incredible engineering.
And from there, he advances to Egypt. And in Egypt, his identity starts to change. The Persian governor just surrenders the entire province.
And the Egyptians welcome him?
They welcome him as a liberator from the Persians. The priests crown him pharaoh in Memphis.
But he wants something more than a political title. He makes this dangerous journey into the desert.
To the Oracle of Siwa. And there, the priests greet him as the son of Amun, the king of the gods.
And this changes him?
It fundamentally changes how he sees himself. He's not just a Macedonian king anymore. He's not just the commander of the Greeks. He's a living god. And that belief is going to have huge consequences down the line.
And before he leaves Egypt, he founds a city.
Alexandria, at the mouth of the Nile. Destined to become one of the greatest cities in the world. He now has the wealth of Egypt, he has divine status, and he's ready to strike at the heart of the empire.
But while he's being hailed as a god in Egypt, things back home are less stable.
Much less stable. Many Greeks still see him as a tyrant. And the man he left in charge, Antipater, is facing a major rebellion.
Led by Sparta.
King Aegeus III of Sparta, with Persian money, launches a full-scale revolt. This is a huge threat to Alexander's entire operation. If Greece falls, he's cut off.
But Antipater is a capable commander.
Immensely capable. He confronts the Spartans at the Battle of Megalopolis and crushes them. Aegeus is killed. The home base is secure.
Which allows Alexander to focus entirely on Darius.
Who makes one last, desperate peace offer.
And it's an incredible offer. A fortune in gold, his daughter's hand in marriage, and half the empire. Everything west of the Euphrates River.
But Alexander's ambition now it's total. It's fueled by victory and divinity.
Yeah.
He famously replies that the world can't have two sons. He's the king of Asia now. He rejects the offer. He's coming to take it all.
And that sets the stage for the final showdown, the Battle of Gaugamela.
Darius knows this is it. And this time, he chooses his ground perfectly. A vast open plain near modern Mosul. No narrow corridors.
Wants to use his numbers. And he's also prepared the ground, hasn't he?
Yes, he's cleared and flattened it for his 200 scythed chariots, his ultimate weapon. He outnumbers Alexander at least 2-1. This is where he will win.
So how does Alexander counter this? He's facing a massive army on a field designed for them.
He uses a brilliant tactical feint. He doesn't advance straight ahead. He begins marching his entire right wing diagonally across the battlefield.
Away from the Persian center.
Exactly. And Darius panics. He thinks Alexander is trying to get off the specially prepared ground for the chariots, so he orders his own cavalry to mirror the movement, to stretch out and stop him.
And that's the trap.
That's the trap. Because as the Persian line stretches, a gap opens up in their center, right next to where Darius is.
But first, the chariots.
Darius unleashes the chariots, but Alexander's troops are ready. The javelin throwers pick off the horses and drivers, and the infantry just opens ranks. They create channels for the chariots to pass harmlessly through to the rear, where they're easily dealt with.
The super weapon is a dud.
Completely neutralized. And with the gap in the Persian line now open, Alexander wheels his companion cavalry and charges straight into it, aiming directly for Darius.
And for a second time.
For a second and final time, Darius flees. And again, the moment the king runs, the center of his army collapses into a rout.
But the battle isn't quite over. On the other wing, his general Parmenion is in serious trouble.
He's almost completely surrounded. A Persian right wing is overwhelming him.
And there's this incredible moment where some of the Persian cavalry actually break through the line.
They do. They have a clear path to attack the Macedonian phalanx from behind, which would have been a disaster. It would have ended the whole campaign.
But they don't.
They don't. They ride straight past the phalanx and start looting Alexander's camp instead. Their greed literally saves the Macedonian army.
So Alexander has to abandon his pursuit of Darius to go back and save Parmenion.
He does. He turns back and smashes into the Persian right wing. It's the bloodiest fighting of the day, but he breaks them and secures the victory.
Gaugamela is total. The Persian army is shattered. Alexander marches into Babylon, then Susa, and is hailed as the new king of Asia.
He's the new rightful ruler.
After Gaugamela, he moves on to the ceremonial capital, Persepolis. And here his two roles, liberator and conqueror, really collide.
They do. He allows his army to plunder the city, and then he orders the great palace to be burned to the ground.
This is pure revenge, isn't it?
It's symbolic vengeance. For the burning of the Acropolis in Athens by the Persians 150 years earlier, it's a political statement to his Greek allies, but it's also an act of incredible destruction against the culture he now claims to lead.
Meanwhile, Darius is still on the run.
Fleeing further east, Alexander pursues him relentlessly, but before he can catch him, Darius is murdered by one of his own governors, a man named Bessus,
Who then declares himself the new king.
which is a huge political gift to Alexander. He finds Darius's body, gives him a full royal funeral, and buries him in the royal tomb.
So he's not the invader anymore. He's the legitimate successor, avenging the murdered king.
Exactly. His new mission is to hunt down the regicide, Bessus. But this is also when the paranoia begins to set in.
The Parmenion and Philotas affair.
A dark chapter. Philotas, the commander of the companion cavalry, is accused of knowing about an assassination plot and not revealing it,
And he's executed.
after confessing under torture. But it doesn't stop there. His father is Parmenion, the old veteran, Philip's most trusted general. Alexander can't risk him turning against him now.
So he has him killed too.
He sends assassins to kill the old man before he can even hear that his son is dead. It's cold, calculated, and utterly ruthless. The commander is becoming a tyrant.
With his internal rivals eliminated, he pushes east into modern Afghanistan and Tajikistan, hunting Bessus.
And this is a different kind of war. It's brutal guerrilla warfare in the mountains against incredibly tough local tribes.
But he eventually catches Bessus.
Bessus is betrayed by his own men. Alexander has him executed in a gruesome Persian style as a kingslayer. And to control this vast new territory, he starts founding cities.
All named Alexandria.
Alexandria in Aria, Alexandria in Arachosia, all the way to the Jaxartes River, the edge of the old Persian Empire. There he founds Alexandria Eschape.
Alexandria the furthest.
And he crushes the Scythian nomads who raid across the river. But this long, grinding war in the east takes a huge toll on his and on him.
By this point, they've been on the march for 8 years. And the men are exhausted, but they're also becoming alienated from their king.
Deeply alienated. A big part of it is that Alexander starts adopting Persian customs. The royal robes, the court etiquette.
And his Macedonian veterans see this as decadent, effeminate.
They feel like he's becoming the man they came to conquer. And this tension just explodes in Samarkand.
The murder of Clitus the Black.
Yeah.
The man who saved his life at the Granicus.
In a drunken argument at a banquet, Clitus accuses Alexander of forgetting his father and taking all the credit for himself. He questions his divinity.
And Alexander just snaps.
In a furious rage, he grabs a spear and kills him. The remorse afterward is apparently immense, but the damage is done. He's shown that no one is safe from his temper.
And then he tries to push it even further with the ritual of proskynesis.
Prostrating yourself on the ground before the king. For Persians, this was normal. It was a sign of respect for the monarch.
But for Greeks, that was an act of worship, something you only do for a god.
It was absolute blasphemy. And the opposition from his Greek and Macedonian officers was so strong that he actually had to back down. But it confirmed what they all feared. Their king now believed he was a god.
After finally securing the east and marrying a local Bactrian princess, Roxana, he turned south towards India.
A place of myth and legend to the Greeks. He crosses the Hindu Kush and prepares to fight King Porus at the Hydaspes River.
And Porus has a weapon Alexander has never faced before.
War elephants. And they are devastating. They trample his phalanx, they cause terrible casualties. The Battle of the Hydaspes becomes Alexander's costliest fight.
But he still wins.
He does, through brilliant cavalry maneuvers, and he's so impressed by Porus's bravery that he allows him to keep his kingdom as an ally.
He has control of the Punjab. He wants to keep going to the great river at the edge of the world.
But his army has finally had enough.
The mutiny at the Hydaspes River.
It's a collective refusal. They are thousands of miles from home. They've been gone for 8 years, and they hear stories of even bigger armies waiting for them. They just refuse to go any further.
And Alexander's furious. But he can't do anything. He's forced to turn back.
The conqueror of the world is defeated by his own men.
And the journey home is almost as deadly as any battle. He takes the main army through the Gedrosian Desert.
An absolutely brutal march. Lack of food, lack of water, extreme heat. Thousands die. It's a catastrophe.
When he gets back to Persia, he finds corruption is rampant among the governors he left behind.
So he conducts a massive purge, executing dozens of them for misrule and theft.
Then he tries to forge a new unified empire, the mass marriage at Susa.
He marries 80 of his top officers to Persian noblewomen, and he marries 2 Persian princesses himself. He's trying to literally merge the ruling classes of Macedonia and Persia.
But his own Macedonian troops see this as the final betrayal.
It sparks the final mutiny at Opis. They feel like they're being replaced by Persia.
But he manages to win them back.
He does. He gives this incredible emotional speech, reminding them of everything they'd achieved together from the very beginning, and it works. There's this tearful reconciliation.
But the personal blows keep coming. His best friend, Hephaestion, dies of a fever.
And Alexander is just shattered, utterly grief-stricken. The loss seems to break something in him.
He's only 32 years old when he gets back to Babylon. He's planning a new campaign to Arabia.
But he never launches it. He catches a fever, and 10 days later, in 323 BC, he's dead.
And we still don't know why, do we? Malaria, poison, typhus. It's one of history's great mysteries.
What we do know is that he died undefeated in battle, the ruler of the largest empire the world had ever.
But it was an empire held together by one thing.
His name, his personal authority. He left no plan for who.
And so it just falls apart.
Immediately. His generals, the successors, tear it apart in decades of civil war. His wife Roxana and his young son are murdered. His dynasty is extinguished.
And his body, his golden sarcophagus, becomes a political pawn.
Hijacked by Ptolemy, taken to Alexandria in Egypt, and its final location is now lost, one of the great archaeological.
So the empire collapses, but his legacy, what he unleashes on the world, is permanent.
The Hellenistic age, this incredible fusion of Greek and Eastern cultures that sparks centuries of innovation in science, art, and philosophy across his former empire.
It's just a staggering scale of impact from one very short life.
It really is. And it brings us back to the central contradiction of the man himself. He was educated by Aristotle, the master of logic and reason.
And yet he ends his life demanding to be worshipped as the son of a moon.
He tries to force his own people to perform proskynesis, an act of worship.
So the question for you to think about is this: how much did that education and rational thought ultimately matter? Was his slide into absolutism and divinity inevitable, a direct result of his unbelievable success? Was his genius always fated to be consumed by the hubris it created?